Yeah, we all know Abe Lincoln was by this guy, John Wilkes Booth. But what if I tell you the story's a lot crazier than that? First of all, John Wilkes Booth was a famous actor. I mean, really famous. Think about if Johnny Depp walked in and Joe Biden. But see, John had a problem. Now, listen closely. He had two other brothers and a dad. His other brother, famous. This other brother, and his dad, really famous. His dad says, I'm done acting, boys. You give it a go. The middle brother said, I got this. They said, shut up. You suck. John and the older brother decide, okay, John is going to do shows in the South. Older brother is going to do shows in the North so they wouldn't have to compete with each other. Now, as many of you are aware, the North and South had their share of differences at the time. Now, remember, John is doing shows in the South and he's getting really famous at this point, but he also starts really sympathizing with the South. John said, I pray the South win this war. They said, we losing. He said, what? They said, yeah, and Abe said he gonna take away the slaves. He said, take away the what? But the slaves love being slaves. That's what he actually thought. Well, his actual words are, slaves are a blessing to black people and white people. He said, my daddy got slaves. I gotta hear this for myself. So he goes over and watches Abe Lincoln's speech. Abe Lincoln says, yeah, we smoking them folk in the South. Also, like I was saying, no more slaves. John said, this finna be the last speech. Somebody said, John, he said, yeah. They said, can I have an autograph? He said, yeah. Here you go. All right. Like I was saying, this finna be the last speech he ever make. So John goes and gathers up a bunch of like-minded individuals. He said, we gotta save the South, y'all. They said, yeah. He said, so we gotta, the president, they said, he said, I'm just playing, y'all. That's insane. They said, yeah. He said, we're just gonna take him hostage. I said, okay, that's better. But he wasn't finished. He also wanted to take the vice president and secretary of state hostage as well. His plan was to remove the leaders of the North, make them confused, and the South can come back and win. But then the South surrenders. So he goes back to, okay, we got the president, the vice president, and the secretary of state. They said, all right, fine. He figured if he did this, the South would have time to make their comeback since the North would be devastated. Now, during one of John's performances, Abe was in the audience. He said, man, John can act. Folks snapping. They said, yeah, but it looks like he's looking at you. While John is performing, he's looking at Abe. And he's saying an intense speech from the play. Abe said, man, what y'all want to eat after this? See, Abe wasn't worried. He got hate mail all the time. This is just probably another dude that doesn't like him. John says, bet. So boom, he goes to his crew. A couple months later, he says, all right, one of y'all gonna take out the VP. The other one gonna take out the Secretary of State. I got Lincoln. So John finds out where Lincoln's watching another show. He goes to the back of the theater. Remember, he's a famous actor. Think Johnny Depp. Everybody's thinking, oh, it's just John. But there's one problem. John got that thing on him. And usually Abe has a bodyguard. But in what has to be the biggest fumble of all time, Abe's bodyguards across the street drank. So John walks over to Lincoln's door. He says, I guess today's my lucky. Lincoln's attendant opens the door. He says, John. John says, yeah. He says, Lincoln's a big fan. Go right ahead. Also, can I get an autograph? John says, yeah. All right now. Like I was saying, I guess today's my lucky day. Now, John's thing only has one shot. He gets in real close, waits for the roar of the applause, and y'all know the rest. Now, Abe was watching this show with an army officer, and he hears it because, well, he's in the box. He gets up, and they start scrapping. John manages to poke the army officer with something really sharp and takes flight. He lands on stage and makes a grand speech. You know, he's an actor. He says, tyrants, blah, 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 blah. People start figuring out what's going on. They said, is that famous actor John Wilkes Booth? He said, gotta go. He takes off. And they figured out what was going on because his wife shouts it from the balcony. The president has just been... A doctor rushes up there, and they bring Abe across the street to a boarding house, and Abe was alive. The bodyguard walked out the bar. He said, what all going on? They said, president just got... The bodyguard said... The doctors helped Abe last through the night, but there was nothing they could do, and by the morning, he was... Now, here's where it starts to get wicked. John escaped. Yeah, they didn't catch him. He was gone, but he made a mistake. He underestimated how much people cared for and respected Lincoln. Newspapers everywhere were cussing him out. Even newspapers that previously cussed out Abe Lincoln. This shocked him. He thought some people in the North would probably hate him, but he would be a hero in the South. A lot of people in the South were like, nah, we don't want him. A lot of other people, though, were like, yeah, that was great, but they didn't say it out loud. You know? Robert E. Lee, the South's like hero general, was like, nah, that ain't it. John was like, no. John was like, well, at least I got my dogs. This was like $2 million in today's time, by the way. He's like, yo, they said, yeah. He said, y'all got the Secretary of State? One of John's people was like, no. But he did get me, though, and I'm in the hospital right now, actually. John said, oh, he's stupid. Y'all at least got the vice president? He said, oh! Nah, I got scared. I went to the bar, had a drink, and you know how that go. How you been, though, John? John said, the president. They said, oh, for real? Man, I hope that don't come back on us. They came back on them. The federal police caught them all pretty quickly, and so John was on his own, and he was on the run. Older brother, remember, he did shows in the North. He said, I voted for Lincoln. Don't say John's name in my presence. He's to me. So people didn't get mad at him for it. The feds went to his other brother's house though. He said, is it my time to shine? They said, you going to jail, because they thought he might have had something to do with it. They let him go though after they caught John. And they caught him 6 months later in a farmhouse. He told the farmers that he was just a regular soldier. They looked at the paper, they looked at him, but they didn't put 2 and 2 together. Agents say, come on out, John. John says, I'd rather fight. So they torched the farm. John says, damn, y'all was for real? Some random officer, John. Their leader goes, are you an idiot? We want John alive so the world can have closure and people can hear why he did it from his own mouth. The soldier's like, oh, that's why you're the leader and I'm not. So John, like an hour later. And in John's wallet, they find a picture of his wife and all the other actress women he was with.